The DCU has always had a troubled development, initially trying to catch up to Marvel way too quickly and ultimately failing to gain the same commercial success, especially for its big team-up movie. And I think mostly the studio is to blame. Warner Bros. Just seems to be all over the place when it comes to DC at the very least. It always has a habit for years now of announcing a movie that is in development, even giving a writer, a director, actors, and a release date. But the movie doesn't come out on that release date, and some of them never get released at all, and never get made at all. And that's something I wanted to talk about in this video. I'll be going over every single DCEU movie that Warner Bros. Promised us that were either officially canceled or have been on hiatus for such a long time that they don't seem to be coming out at all. And if they do, it will be completely different, and with completely different writers and directors than what was initially planned. I'll be going in order of announcement dates, so let's begin starting with announcements from all the way back in 2014. In October 2014, DC unveiled their plan for their new cinematic universe, including a whole slew of movies leading into Justice League and beyond. Most of these movies were founding members of the Justice League solo movies, including a Green Lantern movie, which was a reboot for the 2011 Green Lantern. In July 2015, it was retitled officially to Green Lantern Corps, and it was confirmed to be released on June 19th. 2020. It was confirmed that the movie's main characters would be both of the most popular Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan and John Stewart. And by 2019, the movie was still happening. One of the writers of the movie, I'm pretty sure it was a writer, confirmed that they are still developing the movie. So it hasn't been officially canceled. However, there is an HBO Max Green Lantern show coming out soon, and this is a show that started development way after the movie did, but it seems to be way closer to coming out. They already cast a couple actors playing Guy Gardner and Alan Scott, and while Hal Jordan and John Stewart haven't been confirmed for the show, so it's possible that the show will focus on Guy Gardner and Alan Scott and a couple others, while the movie focuses on the more popular ones, Hal Jordan and John Stewart. I think that because it's been over a year since the initial release date, and they haven't even gotten close to developing the movie, and we haven't gotten any news in years, plus there's an HBO Max show that seems to be going full steam ahead, I don't think this movie will ever come out, and if a Green Lantern reboot ever does come out in the future, probably won't have anything to do with the one that was announced in 2014. Alongside Green Lantern, a Cyborg film starring Ray Fisher as the titular character was announced for an April 2020 release date, and would have been obviously a follow-up to Justice League and Cyborg's storyline in that movie, whether it would have been a follow-up to the theatrical release or the Snyder Cut. The initial plan was probably the Snyder Cut, but if the movie had come out, it probably would have followed his storyline in Justice League, the theatrical cut, meaning his father would have been included. However, probably because of the financial failure of Justice League, DC made Cyborg much less of a priority, and it didn't help that Ray Fisher had a huge fallout with Warner Bros., saying that Joss Whedon treated him and his career terribly, so he doesn't really want to work with Warner Bros. Unless Zack Snyder is involved. So it does not seem like the Cyborg movie is anywhere near happening, and if it does, it will be completely different to the one that was initially planned. The fact that it's been over 7 years since the initial announcement, or almost 7 years, and we haven't gotten anywhere near this movie being made, plus Ray Fisher doesn't seem too keen to play the character without Zack Snyder, it does seem like this is a movie that is pretty much canceled. Zack Snyder often talks about his 5-film plan for his story, starting with Man of Steel, followed by Batman vs. Superman, and then Justice League Part 2, and Justice League Part 3. Justice League Part 2 was actually officially confirmed alongside the first in October 2014, and Justice League Part 3, which was never confirmed, but was mentioned by Zack as a part of his plan initially, so if Part 2 came out, then Part 3 would have come out as well, supposedly. So Part 2 and 3 would have continued the Justice League's war with Apocalypse and Darkseid, as well as include the Legion of Doom in Part 2 and introduce a lot of new heroes, like Green Lantern and others, I'm sure. Part 2 was originally supposed to come out in July 2019, but that obviously never happened, probably due to the Justice League's box office failure, as well as the falling out between Snyder and Warner Brothers. But who knows, we did get the Snyder Cut eventually, and people loved that movie. It was also a pretty big financial success for HBO Max. So maybe we'll see a follow-up to this eventually, but Warner Brothers did say that they're just not interested in continuing the universe anytime soon, or that part of the universe. So Part 2 and 3 of Justice League probably never going to happen. I will say, after watching the Snyder Cut, I do definitely really want to see a follow-up, as opposed to after I watched the first Justice League movie, which I more so wanted a softer reboot than a follow-up to the story of that movie, so I would like to see part 2 of Snyder's story. While the rest of the DCEU slate was unveiled and given release dates, it was confirmed that a sequel to Man of Steel was in development, although it never got a release date. Batman v Superman sort of acted as a sequel, but right after that movie it was confirmed that an actual sequel to Man of Steel 2, was coming as well. A couple of the actors said that they want to be involved, and some writers were attached as well. But we haven't had any news for this movie since around 2017, and while it wasn't officially cancelled, the fact that we haven't had any news in that long is one of the reasons why I do think that this movie won't be coming out. Although, a bigger reason is that in 2021 it was confirmed that Warner Bros. Wants to reboot the Superman franchise, this time with a black actor playing Clark Kent. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Henry Cavill will never get his own movie, especially with all of the Superman projects currently out or in development, including the previously mentioned Superman reboot, as well as Superman and Lois, which is amazing, by the way, an animated Superman series which is coming out soon, I'm pretty sure on HBO Max, as well as an HBO Max Earth 2 Val-Zod limited series, all of which can exist simultaneously. There's no reason that it can't. But I do think that, again, this is the case for a lot of these movies, because of the failure of Justice League, and because Warner Bros. Just doesn't seem interested in giving Henry Cavill a sequel anytime soon. I don't think Man of Steel will ever be getting an official sequel, and again, if it ever does, it probably won't have anything to do with the one initially developed all those years ago. In April 2016, it was confirmed that Ben Affleck would be getting his own movie as Batman, which he would both star in, write, and direct, so Ben Affleck had a lot on his shoulders. Later, he dropped out as director, which makes sense because it seems like he just was taking too much on for one person, but he would still be starring in the role as Batman. The movie had a completed script, so we know a few things about the movie. For instance, Deathstroke was supposed to be the main villain, and going off of Zack Snyder's Justice League, Slade probably would have known Batman's identity, which is Bruce Wayne, which no doubt would have been a huge part of the story, although based off the theatrical release, he wouldn't learn the identity probably till the movie itself, but I do think that would have always been a part of the Batman story. The movie also would have largely taken place in Arkham Asylum and featured multiple Batman villains in the vein of the video game, and initially, while Ben Affleck was supposed to direct, Matt Reeves took over as director, with Ben Affleck, like I said, still attached as Batman. Eventually, Matt Reeves, and I'm assuming Warner Brothers as well, decided that they don't really want to make the Ben Affleck movie that was initially planned, and while they're keeping the name The Batman, they did want to start completely over and recast the main role, with Robert Pattinson taking over as Batman, a much younger Batman, in a completely non-DCEU continuity, and as such, Ben Affleck's Batman didn't get his own movie, but as recently as a few days ago, a new Twitter campaign vying for the initial plan for the Batman, starring Ben Affleck, completely blew up, and while one of the Twitter campaigns for releasing the Snyder Cut worked, all the rest really didn't, like restoring the Snyder Cut and now this one, so I don't really think it's ever going to happen, but I would like to see Ben Affleck return as he was in Batman vs. Superman, without killing, in a Batman movie with Deathstroke as the main villain, because that does sound pretty awesome. In May 2016, a Gotham City Sirens movie was confirmed. Now, this is a bit of a lesser-known property, so if you don't know, the Gotham City Sirens is really just whenever Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, and Catwoman team up. They're not really a significant team in the comics. It's really just those three. Now, if a group of female characters starring Harley Quinn sounds familiar, it's because Birds of Prey basically replaced this movie. This movie is just basically Birds of Prey, but it doesn't exist and it never came out. Now, Jared Leto was confirmed to be returning as the Joker, so we did get a little bit of confirmation with the actors, but I don't think this movie will ever come out. I don't think that the initial plan for this movie will ever see the light of day, especially with Birds of Prey existing and honestly not really making all that much money. In December 2016, a Deadshot spin-off from Suicide Squad was confirmed to be in development, with Will Smith as Deadshot. Suicide Squad did do well financially, and Will Smith is a big box office draw, so I do think it made sense. However, we just haven't gotten any news about the movie in years, and Will Smith did not return for The Suicide Squad, instead being replaced by Bloodsport, who is a much more interesting and popular character, who honestly is much more likely to be given a spin-off movie or spin-off show than Deadshot ever was, which is something that I would much prefer. So I don't think the Deadshot movie will ever happen. In February 2017, a Nightwing film was confirmed to be in development, with Chris McKay in negotiations to direct. Now, continuity-wise, this might not have been in the DCU, since Dick Grayson was confirmed to be dead in this universe by Zack Snyder, just never on screen. However, I don't think this would have stopped Warner Brothers from including this in the DCU, as retconning it so that that was Jason Todd and not Dick Grayson makes much more sense. I mean, this is a universe where there's no Red Hood, there's no Tim Drake Robin, there's no Damian Wayne Robin, and we've never gotten any hints to Batgirl either. So there's no Bat family. There was just one Robin, and he died. I don't like that at all. I would have preferred if that was Jason Todd, and also he comes back to life as well eventually. So I do think that they could have easily done that, since Dick Grayson was never confirmed to be dead on screen, just like in interviews and stuff. So this Nightwing movie probably would have eventually been a part of the DCU as well. However, since the initial announcement, the failure of Justice League and the complete overturning of the DCEU occurred, which put many of DC's movies at the bottom of its priority list, which seemingly includes Nightwing. The movie hasn't been officially confirmed to be cancelled, and I have no doubt we will eventually get a Nightwing movie, but this one in particular, as it was initially envisioned, probably with Chris McKay as director, will never get off the ground. Harley Quinn vs. the Joker was announced in July 2017, and had it come out, if you were to place it somewhere in the DCU timeline, it would have been between Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, where instead of Joker and Harley Quinn breaking up off screen, there would be an entire movie dedicated to just that breakup, where obviously Harley Quinn and the Joker would fight a lot. A script was written and everything, but there was a script written and everything, but by February 2019, the movie was cancelled, mostly because of the two movies that were coming out soon, which are Joker in 2019 and Birds of Prey in 2020. So if you have those two movies, why do you want a Harley Quinn versus the Joker movie as well? Because really, who wants to see that? But it seems like Warner Brothers desperately wanted to cash in on the popularity of these characters from Suicide Squad, because there's Gotham City Sirens, there's Harley Quinn versus the Joker, there's the ones that got made, which are Birds of Prey and Joker, and another movie which I'll get to soon. In October 2017, a Deathstroke movie was announced, starring Joe Manganiello as Slade Wilson, or at least announced to be in development. A few years later, the movie was confirmed to be a prequel and an origin story for the character. However, much like many others, this movie was put very low on DC's priority list, probably after the failure of Justice League, and we just haven't had any news about this movie in a very long time, and also because the Batman, which would have starred Deathstroke as the main villain, isn't happening, I don't think this movie is likely either, so Deathstroke as a movie won't come to fruition anytime soon. But I don't think a Deathstroke movie will never happen. I do think that he's a popular enough character to have his own movie, but just not yet. In March 2018, director Ava DuVernay, who later went on to produce and I'm pretty sure showrun Naomi, which is a DC CW show which will probably be in the Arrowverse, signed on to direct a New Gods film. It was confirmed that Darkseid and the Female Furies, which includes the most popular one, Big Barda, would be appearing, but if I had to guess, I would say that Mr. Miracle probably would have been the main character. It's just that his story and character fits by far the best as a protagonist of a New Gods story. Also, Orion could have been a main character, but I would have preferred and probably bet that it was Mr. Miracle. Now, it is possible that this movie was not going to be in the DCU, as Darkseid, it was said to be played by a different actor, and it does seem like Ava DuVernay might have wanted to distance herself from that. But I think that eventually, there's no reason why this wouldn't have fit into the DCU. In fact, having a saga where Darkseid is the main villain, much like Thanos was to the Infinity Saga of Marvel, it would have just been too perfect for a New Gods film not to be included, as they would have been kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy plus the Eternals of the DC Extended Universe, a completely separate faction from the Justice League who are also at war with Darkseid and also want to take Darkseid down, where they eventually team up with the Justice League to do so. I think that would have been perfect, so a New Gods film, it fits perfectly into Zack Snyder's vision of Justice League's Part 1, 2, and 3. However, this movie was eventually canceled. The movie was officially canceled in April 2021, apparently because Warner Brothers didn't want there to be two live-action Darkseids so close to each other, with Zack Snyder's Justice League coming out in 2021 featuring the live-action debut of Darkseid. They just didn't want a different Darkseid to also be appearing anytime soon in the movie theater. That reason is pretty stupid, so I think the real reason is because having Darkseid returning live action, even if he would be played by a different actor, considering he's a CGI character, the actor playing him is a little bit less important since Darkseid also just didn't have a very big role in Zack Snyder's Justice League. This probably would have given validity to the canon of Zack Snyder's Justice League, and according to Warner Brothers, we just cannot have that. This is all just such a shame because, like I said, I think that a saga like the Infinity Saga, which mainly focuses on the Justice League and eventually the New Gods teaming up to fight Darkseid, would have been perfect. So it just seems like Warner Brothers really wasted an opportunity which they could have used so well. Like I said, Warner Brothers desperately wanted to cash in on the success of Suicide Squad's Joker and Harley Quinn characters, and this is the final movie that I'm going to talk about that is trying to do so, but obviously never did, and that's a Joker movie. Now, yes, the Joker movie did come out in 2019 starring Joaquin Phoenix, and it made a crap ton of money. However, that is a completely separate Joker movie. They wanted to make two different Joker movies, one starring Joaquin Phoenix, which ended up being good, and they wanted to also make a bad Joker movie starring Jared Leto. This was never a good idea. Jared Leto is a bad Joker, and I just cannot even imagine making him the main character of a movie. I mean, you couldn't even make him the main villain of a Batman movie. That doesn't even sound good somehow, let alone the main character of a Joker movie. So I'm very glad this movie never came out, and in fact, it was officially canceled in February 2019, at the exact same time that the Harley Quinn vs. Joker movie was canceled as well, both of which were probably canceled due to Joker coming out, and Warner Brothers just eventually decided that it wouldn't make sense for there to be two Joker franchises, so this movie just never came out, and I'm glad it didn't. Aquaman was a huge success, being the first DCU movie to pass $1 billion and going on to be the highest grossing movie of all time for DC. So naturally, a sequel was greenlit. The sequel is going to be coming out probably in 2023, I'm pretty sure. But Warner Brothers wanted to cash in on the Aquaman universe just a bit more. So they didn't make an Aqualad movie, they didn't make a movie about Tempest, or hell, a prequel movie about the fall of Atlantis, where maybe Orion, the Atlantean wizard from ancient times, would have been the main character. That would have worked. Instead, they wanted to explore a different part of the Aquaman universe, one that we actually saw in the movie, and that's the Trench. Now, considering the Trench creatures don't speak and have no human characteristics to get attached to, I never understood what they were going for here. Maybe a horror film where a couple random sailors find themselves in that part of the world, a part of the ocean, and they have to fight against the Trench while they're probably killed off one by one. I just, other than that, which just doesn't sound interesting for an entire movie, I don't really know what they were going to do there. Apparently, instead of that, they would have focused on the kingdom of the Trench, meaning these creatures with, again, no human characteristics, so how do you, relate to them? Have, a whole monarchy. They would have to explore their interpersonal relationships and their problems and their system of government and how their world works, and, who cares? Who actually cares about these characters? They were fine in Aquaman as these scary creatures, but to be given their own movie where one of those creatures are going to be the main character, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, honestly. And it seems like Warner Brothers eventually agreed, as while they did want to cash in on the Aquaman movie, their initial plan, it never made sense, so the movie was canceled on April 1st, 2021, which, I mean, the fact that it was canceled on April Fool's, which, by the way, was not a joke, maybe they understood the movie was itself kind of a joke. Now, there are a couple other movies that Warner Brothers announced that haven't come out yet and haven't gotten anywhere close to pre-production either, but I don't think it's been enough time since any of those announcements for me to say that the movie will never come out. Other than the movies that were officially canceled in this video, they're all movies that I personally believe will never happen, and if they do, it will be completely different to the ones that were initially planned or the plans for the initial movies. So that's it for this video. That's every DCEU movie that was planned by Warner Brothers that never came out, and this is something that I think Warner Brothers has a really big problem with. They always announce movies, even if the movie never comes out. They announce so many movies, maybe just to stir up hype, but so many of those movies never get made. I hate to compare the DCU to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but Marvel has literally one movie that they announced that never came out, and that's the Inhumans, which was reworked into a TV show, and they never really wanted to make that movie either. It's more of a higher-up who forced them to, because they wanted to make the Inhumans the new X-Men. So Marvel clearly plans out their things better. They have a tighter grip on the development process and what they announce. If they announce it, there's an almost 100% certainty that it will come out. So Warner Brothers just really gotta get themselves together, man. They just don't know what they're doing with DC, and it's a huge shame. However, 2020 has given us two really good DC movies with Zack Snyder's Justice League and The Suicide Squad. So while I'm still excited for the future of the DCU, still though, they have to get their things in order.